At the first one, we have home buyers and sellers to be spared automatic broker commissions under $418 million settlement. Can I see something at the top?
Yeah, let's see it.
What is automatic about a broker commission? I mean, that's already from the beginning. That's like not even a proper representation of what the heck this whole thing is about.
So it was interesting because I was reading through it, and the first thing that came when they say it automatic, I'm like, well, you can say no and interview a few other people and then kind of gauge where you're at, So it's like, unless the value that they provided for that percentage made up for, what it is that they're selling for, then okay, then you got sold. It made sense.
So essentially what happened here is that the National Association of Realtors agreed to this settlement that what they say eliminate real estate brokers' longstanding automatic commissions, commonly up to 6% of the purchase price. Mm-hmm. But the real issue isn't just the commission itself. It's whether you can have how it's paid as part of this. And then if it is done this way, it can or cannot be on MLS. There's all this other stuff that's going to get figured out, but some of it's super unclear. But also, I will tell you right now, some of the let's say unintended consequences are super clear. So let's talk about some of those. First of all, it says home buyers and sellers would be able to negotiate their fees with their agents up front. When was that not the case? Honestly, when was that not the case? I know that let me clarify the top. I'm sure some people may have felt that they were handcuffed to having to pay a certain commission, or maybe they didn't want to, fight for themselves and kind of vie for a lower commission to sell or buy or whatever. But this is already at the top. People are able to negotiate their fees. Whether or not you get what you want doesn't mean you are unable to negotiate. That's already a problem in this.
So one of the things that right off the bat, and I'm not trying to play devil's advocate or choose one side or, favor with the other side, but I will look at it like if someone's presenting to you a document that's a contract, right? Everybody knows, read the fine print, read every single thing. Even if they're breaking it down to you and explaining it to you as a responsible financial move, you should still always read the paperwork. And in the paperwork, you'll see that you're able to negotiate your pricing, and it's not automatic. So by the time that you meet with the realtor, you should have already pre-prepped and know more or less what to expect. Because if you're going into the meeting and you don't know anything about real estate, then anything they say could be true.
Well, okay, and let me clarify. I'm not saying that I'm not advocating that consumers should have gotchas. And
No.
Sorry, you're a sucker and you're an idiot.
Not at all.
That's not what I'm saying at all. But it's not even proper to say that they will be able to negotiate fees up front now that they always have been able to.
Yeah.
Now, again, this comes down to the agent that's sitting across the table with their listing paperwork with you saying, here's my listing agreement. And then whether or not they go into detail over the listing agreement commission fees, how much the buyer is getting offered, it's not always equally split. There are some things that in this article they don't go into, but it's first of all, it's not always 6%. Sometimes it's 5, 5.5, 4, whatever. And then it's it's split down the middle. That's not always the case either. Sometimes it's a 6% commission and it's 2.5 and 3.5.
And I mean, just from experience, I've gone to listing presentations with my realtor partners, and they break down everything and they give the option to the seller, hey, this is what you get if we go with this price. This is what we get if we go with this price. So there, at least for the instances that I've seen, there is options. Now, obviously you pay for what you get. And that's across the board. So if you pay someone a 1% to sell your house, you're going to get a 1% service, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, so on. So at the same time, you don't have to get, glued to the first agent that you speak with. So I think there's so much more information out there that I think at the same time, it's a give or take. You should also be more prepared when you're meeting with the realtor.
Well, and it's disingenuous to also say that this is going to drive down commission prices. That's not the case. What they're basically is saying, you can't pay, the sellers don't need to pay for the buyer's agent anymore. No. Well, that's fine. So, okay, buyers are going to now have to pay for their agent on their own, which means that the buyer-broker agreement is going to come into heavy play, or there's going to be some other, well, I shouldn't say or, there will be some more creative solutions that come to the market on how buyer agents can be compensated because they are doing sales work. They are representing your side of the deal.
Yeah.
This concept that the buyer's agent is nothing more than an Uber taxi driver just letting you see things is false.
Yeah.
There are buyer's agents that go to bat for you when your
100%.
appraisal comes in high or low and have to renegotiate terms, or when you have specific terms that are outside of the financing that need to be negotiated, or when you get your repair work back, or your home your home inspection back, and there's repair work that needs to be done, or there's price adjustments, or whatever. There's so many other things that go into this that it is unfair or untrue to say that commission prices are going to go down because the workload isn't going down at all.
On the contrary, I feel like at times they put more time into it than anything.
Well, and I think how the money gets to the buyer's agent is really going to be the thing that has to change here. But, the other thing, just I'll say mechanically speaking, is when there are less people that perform a task, usually the more they're compensated, not less. So it's kind of the law of supply and demand. Like when you do something or a specific trade where there's not very many of you and let's say the talent is scarce, then you usually get paid pretty well to do that.
I think it comes down to like the lawyer model, right? Where if you want to get your case solved and you want to be dismissed, you're going to go and hire the best. You're not just going to hire someone that's not that good, right? Just because it's going to save you money, you might also lose.
Well, that's another unintended consequence of this. It's like, oh, okay, so those who have are going to have better? Yeah, probably. Once again. But like here's the thing. To that degree, to that argument, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying you're right. If you have more means and you need to buy $1 million house and you can fork out the money one way or another in the deal, outside the deal to pay your buyer's agent, then you're probably going to get a good deal, which then I'm going to say asses out the people in the middle class and the poor.
Hey, you're being honest.
Once again. So here's an issue. And the argument that this is going to like reduce home prices, that's not true either. Like, no, the home price doesn't include the amount that goes to the buyer's agent.
So those are like, great, I'll take that home.
The price is still the price. and the thing is that even if people are going to try to negotiate a higher price even in order to get the buyer's compensation or the buyer's agent's compensation paid for somehow, well then there's still the affordability issue and you have to qualify.
Yeah.
And this is still going on like right now in the middle of also how to even insure homes in California right now at higher premiums that are already putting duress on people's qualification standards. It's becoming like this like crap cake. And
oh god!
And I am not necessarily. I am obviously not happy about this, and I'm also complaining. But I'm saying this because like buyers agents help people get into homes, and there are very few people that have enough real estate knowledge, contract law knowledge, and day-to-day front-of-the-lines knowledge to represent themselves in a sale. Even if you went and bought from a for sale by owner and you did it
even
on your
worse.
Own, well, maybe or maybe not. I'm not going to say it's worse or better, but I'm saying here's my point: is unless you are like the 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% that you can self-represent yourself as a buyer in a real estate transaction, great for you. But that is not the case for the majority of people in the market.
So I'll give an example that I heard over the weekend. So it's a listing agent, right? And he's trying to work with the unrepresented buyer. So the listing agent says, great, send me your purchase contract, send me your terms, and let me know when you can get the inspection done.
Right. Yeah.
The buyer then goes, how do I do that?
Right.
I don't know. Didn't you want to do this yourself? And then, okay, go call your lawyer. Lawyer's charging me $5,000 to get this paperwork done and help. Okay, pay them. I don't have that money. Okay, then hire an agent. Right. So it almost like you're down the line, you're going to have to need some representation, because if I go to the doctors, I'm hoping the doctor knows what's wrong with me, because I don't know what's wrong with me. If I go to a mechanic, I hope the mechanic knows what's wrong with my car, because I obviously don't. And if I try to do it myself, it might cost me more and I might lose out on more money. So I feel that honestly, down the line, you're going to have to upfront negotiate what you're worth as a buyer's agent, which I think is okay, because now you're letting everything upfront. Hey, this is what my services cost. This is what you're entailed if you want to work with me. But this is also why I'm worth that much.
Yeah.
So I think in a way, it does squeezes out all the people that, unfortunately aren't strong agents, and they need to be a little bit more assertive the way that they, handle their business, because now it's not an automatic, hey, you shoot a contract, it gets accepted, you're going to get paid by the seller. Mm-hmm. Now it's an upfront thing that needs to be spoken about, because I feel for the longest time, the buyer side could just kind of squeeze away with, hey, you're not paying me, they're not paying me, the seller's paying me, so my work for you is free. But the counter argument to that is that the buyer's still paying for that buyer's commission fee. It's just wrapped into the loan and the purchase price.
Right. That's already how it is.
So it's like at the end of the day,
you're already buying the house at the price that includes the commission to the buyer's agent.
Is the seller really paying for that, or is the buyer rolling it into the purchase price that they're buying for the house?
It's both. I mean, it's both and, because it's a handoff, right? Because the seller's taking less money on the sale of their house, so they're basically paying for it. But the buyer's also buying it at a higher price than they would if there was baked in there, right? So it's a both and. I understand that mathematically, and some of these people in the comments will be like, no, it can't be both. I understand what you're saying. The point is, the price of $1 million includes 3% to the buyer's agent in this example. And then could it be $970,000 if there was no buyer agent fee? Yeah, it could be. But then the person's also still netting less money on the sales side. Now, I am unfortunately, I'm very skeptical that this is going to lead to better transactions. I think this is going to cause more problems when it comes to things that are undisclosed or overlooked or unknown, and buyers who do not have the correct representation could find themselves in a bad position because they are unable to pay, or there's no other way for that commission to be paid, so they can't have proper representation in escrow.
Yeah, and unfortunately for me, the three most demographics that I feel will get affected by this is first-time home buyers, VA buyers, and first-time investors. Because if you don't have, as a first-time buyer, it's almost very difficult to get that down payment. Then once you get the down payment, you're like, great, I got the down payment, I got closing costs. And then closing costs is going to run you another 2 to 3% on top of the 3.5%, 5%, depending on how much you pay down. That's the minimum. Then you're telling me you're going to have to then fork out another 2.5%, 3%. You know, where's that money coming from if they're already struggling right now with savings and coming up with a down payment and closing costs? So that's also going to be addressed. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are going to lose because now they're going to be, I don't have money to pay for my house down payment. I don't have money for closing costs. And now I don't have money for freaking representation. Well,
and it's going to have to come down to some sort of exchange, whether it is an increased price or increased down payment or some sort of like seller compensation in order to compensate, agent on record, whatever it might be. Some way of navigating money from the net sales profit from the seller side to the buyer agent is going to have to happen because it is baked into the price, if you will. And also, here's the other deal. You brought up the VA thing. We have to talk about the VA thing because we predominantly do VA here, VA purchases and refinances. The VA handbook prohibits a VA buyer from paying their agent. Mm-hmm. Now, the new rule means the buyer must pay their agent. So how is it that a VA borrower is going to be able to pay their agent when they're not allowed to pay their agent?
So like you said, this is just going to open a whole bunch of can of worms that we didn't think were there, and now they're going to be problems that weren't problems before, and now that's going to cause another problem. So then that has to get fixed down the line somehow, whether they're going to wrap it into the loan, they're going to switch the law up, but
it's gridlock. It right now, as it stands, it's gridlock.
You can't do nothing
because you have to either change the VA rule or there has to be an exception for this new rule that does not apply to VA. So of these two immovable forces, one of them is going to have to yield to the other.
It's like creating a solution, but another problem over here.
Well, the solution is the problem in this case, right? Because the VA rule has to change in the VA handbook, which will allow the VA buyer to do that. Or this rule has to create a clause that has an exception for VA buyers to yield itself to the rule that's in VA right now. They both cannot exist is the point. Yeah. So VA buyers, here we go, for our active duty and our veterans who served our country, let's make this more difficult for them.
Even more.
Congratulations. This, and here's the deal. This F's the sellers over too. Yes, I had to say it that way instead of the way I wanted to, because what happens, and this happens here in San Diego, and I was just texting with somebody about this today, is in San Diego, because our cost of living adjustment is so high, married active duty combined BAH allows them to afford in San Diego.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And sometimes their offer is the best offer. So if their offer on the table is the best offer to the seller, what's the remedy to a seller who can't accept it? What's the answer?
Paying the commission.
Right? You don't
paying the commission.
Paying the commission, right?
Paying the commission.
Right. So here's why. Let's go back to $1 million home example. Like $1 million active duty, yes.
Yeah,
depending on their.
We're doing it. We're seeing it. It's happening.
Yes, it's happening because their combined BAH is enough that they can easily cover that with the BAH. But here's my point: if the offer from the married VA couple comes in and it's the best offer on the table to the seller is then being denied their ability to take the best offer because of this rule. They'd have to take the second or third best offer, which may not be VA, but because it's not VA, allows them to be able to accept it. So this undermines sellers in that situation.
So doesn't that discriminate against somebody because of the fact that, hey, I don't have money, therefore you can't show this house now? Like, yo, that's not...
Well, I think that's part of what they're trying to do. This is trying to create an equal playing ground, a level playing ground, by saying that based on the amount of commissions that are paid to the buyers, some buyers agents don't show certain properties. But in the end, here's my argument with that. Whether the commission is 2.5% to a buyer agent, 2%, 3%, whatever it is, your goal is to put your buyers in a home. And if you show them a house that has a higher commission that they hate, they're not going to make an offer.
Yeah,
if
regardless.
you show them a house that they love and they are willing to do anything they want to get into it, and the commission is 2%, guess what? You're closing a deal at 2%. That's the bottom line.
Yep.
And the argument in the article is that, well, agents are taking their clients to more expensive places. That's also a misrepresentation of what's going on.
That's why we're here in the first place.
That agents are taking their clients to places that pay higher commissions regardless of price, but you still have to go down to the rung of the ladder where you have to get to the nuts and the bolts of the math and go, do they even qualify at the higher price, higher commission place? They may not. So in the end, I honestly think this is a bunch of bullcrap, and I don't even benefit from this in either way. Honestly,
Sharing
we don't benefit.
thoughts.
We don't benefit or lose in this. I am definitely taking a side that I think this is stupid and it's a big waste of money.
It is.
Also, what level of reconciliation comes to people who this happened to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago? How far back are we going to go? Because $418 million doesn't cover more than a couple years, I'll say.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. I'm sorry. On the show, I don't even know how many years this is going to go back and like kind of claw back. But it's not going to cover everyone that's ever bought a house. So that also has a line in the sand on who even benefits from this stupid lawsuit.
And then again, if you say, okay, I opt to go with the seller's agent, like it's okay, I'm going to go with them, I'm going to get a better deal if I just go with the seller. Cool. So the listings agent job is to
represent the seller,
negotiate the best terms for the seller, and sell the house at the highest price possible.
Yes.
The buyer's agent is responsible for negotiating the best deal for the buyer, hopefully saving some money and bringing the price down, and negotiating the best terms
and conditions.
So where is the benefit if it's a conflict of interest? If one's trying to get it higher, the other one's trying to get it lower with the best terms.
I think what's going to happen is that listing agents who mostly right now in a demand market have the upper hand anyways, are going to have even more of an upper hand.
Yeah, of course.
What they could do is just double in deals and do a good job. And then maybe have a sub-representation for someone to represent the buyer either in their agency or on their team or something like that. So really I think, okay, hey, well, instead of 6% commission, we'll do it for 4.5 or 5, and we'll double in the deal. We'll have someone else represent you on this side. So at least there's, let's say, some sort of equal representation. Even if it's under the same roof or the same name of the company.
That's not about
I don't know how that's going to work, honestly. I think there is something to be said about other, I will not name them, but other brokerages that have referral structures inside their company where agent A can refer to another agent to represent a buyer that they can't, and then they can pay a commission referral fee for that. I think some of those agencies are going to have a leg up in this. Nice. I don't know how this is going to, I don't know what this is going to do to the Redfins and Zillows and
well, I feel like they're just getting squeezed out because their margins are not going to be able to, they're getting dried up.
Well, yes, but I think that opens up a different conversation of how they make their money because it's not just that they're making money from selling homes. There are software companies. So they're software companies that are 100% reliant on MLS data porting into their service in order to show people homes online. So it's not just that they're making money because of, sales. It's marketing, it's data, it's a bunch of other things.
And who would always pay all these big marketing dollars to Zillow? Buyers agents, people that want to get leads.
Yes, it's agents, it's advertisers, it's all sorts of other things. I'm saying it's a whole different conversation than this one. I'm not saying we can't have it. It's just that we can go down that rabbit hole and end up there where the point here for the broker commission thing is that number one, people were not held at gunpoint to sign up for this. Number one, okay? If you were, comment below, DM us, and we'll apologize. I'm so sorry that happened to you. That should have never happened. And I'm glad you made it out alive to be able to make that comment. Number two, this is not always the case where people are locked into paying the fee. It's not always 6%. It's not always split down the middle. And this definitely does have repercussions beyond the lawsuit itself. Specifically for what we do with VA buyers, there have to be workarounds that come up really quick because some of these things are going to take effect this summer, and we're only a couple months away.
I honestly think that the way that they word these articles and they push out these news, it's so that it hits consumers in certain feelings so that they could prompt themselves and say, yeah, you know what? The real estate industry is doing this. Yeah, they're bad.
Yeah. But I understand, one of the attorneys in here said, it's a bribe. I understand their argument. They have to say crap like that to try to, kind of, lay their case out for everybody who's going to decide
this. They're in the same ballpark, but just different structure. They still somehow get a commission themselves off a settlement. But
look, I've said this on other shows too. It's are we going to do this to the auto industry too?
Yeah.
Let's talk about salespeople in the auto industry. Are we going to completely undermine them and pull the rug out from underneath them and that they shouldn't get paid because of the work they do? I don't care whether you love or hate the car industry or love or hate car salesmen. When you're not buying a car, you're buying a hundreds of thousands or in the $1 million home. This is, for most people, their largest asset, their biggest monthly payment, their largest tax deduction when it comes to being able to deduct mortgage interest and property taxes, et cetera, et cetera. And now we're saying, let's make it even more difficult to do the thing that we call the American dream. I don't know. That seems to be changing very quickly as well.
The American thought.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm
move on.
I'm getting mad now.
Yeah, I am going to have more. There is more to come about this.
Oh,
This
there's
is not the
definitely
last
not
time.
it. There's going to be
But
a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more back and forth. And also, I know for sure this is not the end of it, because there's going to be other concessions like the VA thing we just talked about.
Yeah.
That before this rule goes into, let's say, full effect, or has to be deployed, there will have to be changes, because I only brought up that one specific thing. That is not the only problem. The sellers being, let's say, denied being able to take their highest and best offer from someone because VA is also another secondary effect. But anyways, let's move on in the interest of time.